through staff to you for ultimate approval. We're estimating at your July PSTA board meeting is when the full bus plan will be approved. So this is the April planning committee. So what we would suggest is that we treat this presentation as a dry run for a similar presentation at the April PSTA board meeting. And so I'd like you to give feedback on what areas we might modify or enhance or change. It's different than the green light thing that you just heard. This is subject to change. The consultant, TMD, Transportation Management Design Inc. from San Diego, is flying into town starting on this coming Monday because we have an ACPT meeting for them to present this information to. And then staying through Wednesday, PSTA. So when you see this presentation a second time, it will be Brad, Cassandra, and TMD. But since we don't have them here today, Cassandra's going to play the role of TMD, and I'm playing the role of Brad and Cassandra. the guy from TMD has a beard. Yeah.
And let me just, before we even jump in, I think we probably all asked the question, so let's get it out of the way before you have to go. Right now, what you're wanting us to do is to review the concept of the optimal scenario, and the optimal scenario means, for one sentence,
No.
Okay, because in the interest of time and recognizing this is the first you've seen any of it, we had this as an action item for you to recommend the optional scenario. But what I'm suggesting is that you don't do that. That we're not going to ask at the April 24th meeting for the PSTA board to approve the optimal scenario. That it'll be information item at the PSTA board meeting at this point, and then in subsequent months, once we have the other elements, the no new revenue scenario, the specific revenue estimate for a 1% sales tax, and the bus improvements under that scenario, the concepts, the financing plan, all that is then when this committee would then recommend that to the board.
Okay, so what you're saying, let me just be clear. The planning committee is requested to review the concept of the optimal scenario and approve for discussion at the board and advisory and the ACPT. So
Right. So
what you're looking for us is, hey, planning committee, you're the first to see this, blow some holes through it, tell us what you think needs to be better or worse, or what else we should be, not from the plan perspective, but from the presentation perspective, what else could be added to help make it more clear. Is that what you're kind of looking?
correct, for discussion at PSTA board.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And it's within your power, you can take action to recommend the concept if you so choose.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's absolutely necessary.
We don't have the presentation, do we?
Yeah.
You have it at your
It's underneath.
place up there. And it will be made available electronically.
There's another one over there. It's underneath.
So, what I want to do is remind us all why we are engaged in this community bus study, and what is the purpose for developing a plan for a revised bus system. As you know, we have very strong ridership. As we discussed earlier this morning, we have a very cost-effective system out there today. It has been operated in an efficient manner. Why would we be about redesigning it? the underlying purpose, and it dovetails, I think, so nicely with the whole green light process, is we want to, the purpose of the bus system is to serve our community, our communities and our Pinellas County community. It is not the end in of itself to have as many buses as we can possibly get, to double ridership in 10 years, which was earlier discussed. That's not one of our, that's a great thing, and that's a performance metric, but that's not the goal. It is to help our community, and we want to make sure we owe it to the customers and to the community to make sure we have the best designed bus system, bus network that we can for the community. We want to be, the board has asked for this to be very thoughtful about these different scenarios. No new revenue scenario, or what can be generated through the 1% sales tax. It's important to do this study now. And as Cassandra said, I would be recommending doing this even if if the county had not approved us to have a referendum in 2014. Ridership continues to grow despite $40 million in service cuts. We have reduced the service. We have less service now than we did in 2007. But ridership continues to grow. We have been able to, and thanks also to some grant funding that we were able to acquire, add some limited amounts of service. The North County Jolly Trolley, the connector flex routes in the north part of the county. But by and large, those services are very, very limited. They don't have an enormous, they have good, strong ridership for what they're intended to be, but we don't have significant dollars to fund major improvements to the already undersized bus system that we have in the county. This is a map showing all of the routes. And as you know, we have routes across the entire county. This I thought was a great graphic to show these are all of the routes in Pinellas County that at some point during the day experience overcrowding. Now, as Bob's awesome YouTube video shows, at all points on the route, at all points of the day, many of the buses can appear empty at some points. But at other points, they're full, or they have overcrowding problems. And as you can see, it's a large proportion of all of our routes. The routes are very infrequent, hour or half-hour service, so the folks that need to ride do ride, not just in South St. Pete, but throughout the county, and they fill the buses.
Go back. I don't understand what so the darkest line is only standing room only for 15 minutes during the whole day.
The blue lines are the frequency of the routes. The yellow is the standing room only issue routes.
Okay, thank you. I'm totally misunderstood.
Yeah, the different shades of blue indicate the frequency with which those routes run. The yellow are just routes that have overcrowding problems. And one of the things that highlights is the most frequent routes in our system. We only have 2 routes in the whole system that run on a frequency every 15 minutes. And you can see that at least one of them, Route 4, down here in St. Pete, which runs every 15 minutes in the peak hour, does not have overcrowding because the bus keeps coming.
So, for instance, the 300X has standing room only.
That's the 100X that goes across the Gandy.
Oh, 100.
The 100X, it does have overcrowding on certain of its routes. Yes. And it generally carries more riders than the 300X, which goes across the Howard Franklin Bridge. Another reason that we're doing this bus study is because the community has changed in the 21 years since we last looked at our study. And when we last did the study in the early 1990s, we did what is known in the industry as a comprehensive operational analysis, a COA. And that study was an inward look at the efficiency of the bus routes. It made recommendations to reduce costs on certain routes, to save money because of ridership was lower in certain areas. It made recommendations to move bus routes sometimes as little as 1 block. And it mainly focused on saving money by running the inward schedule that PSTA operates with its drivers and scheduling of work shifts and whatnot. It made efficiency measures there. It did not do a general public outreach effort. It did not do a 100% onboard survey count. All of the elements that are involved in this effort. This is a totally different system.
And when was that done?
25 years ago, right?
It was 1991, I think it was. It was either 91 or 92. So as a result of that, even though that was done in the early 90s, most of the bus routes in PSTA system, and largely the base of the PSTA system has not changed since 1971, since it was taken over from a private entity in the Clearwater area. The routes are similar. Now, that's not to say when you see the recommendations in the following slides that it is totally wrong. Most of the bus routes are fairly intuitive. They go along the major corridors of Pinellas County. But they have not changed since we had those lovely GMC fishbowls. That's what those old-time buses are called. In our
I
system.
used to ride those to Clearwater Beach, just so you know.
And as the PSTA board knows, and as we've been working over the last several years, we can look outwardly and serve certain markets better in different ways. We have shown that, and we need to keep working on that. We need to respond to the tourist market in a better way than we have. We don't have many commuters. We have some commuters on the 100 and 300X over to Tampa, but we have virtually no what I would call white-collar commuters on our bus. It's because we don't have any commuter bus routes. Unlike most transit systems, unlike other transit systems I've worked for, where you have a much higher frequency of service in the rush hour, and you take people to work in the city, we don't do that. We have very high ridership that's oriented around the middle of the day and all times of the day, because we carry service employees and a large portion of workers, but also medical, shopping, tourists, other things. We have a very strong market. We just have not served the commuter market in very much, or in ways that have attracted commuters. Now, Pinellas County does not have as many white-collar commuters as other markets, but it's a market that we really don't serve. So this bus plan is a comprehensive look that is, it's sort of like a cookbook or a recipe. We talk about how the whole Greenland plan is a recipe, and we're going to be putting things into the box, but this bus plan itself is really a combination of multiple elements that are all coming together now. In the scope of work for TMD and what they did, they didn't start from scratch. They did review, and a lot of their recommendations are similar to the alternative analysis, which did a bus network for the alternative analysis, or recommended one. The long-range transportation plan that the MPO approved, last approved, had a bus network. PSTA's transit development plan had a bus network, a future bus network plan. All of those, and there are elements, and I think you'll be able to, if you're familiar with any of those, you'll see those in the recommendations. Most of the recommendations are based of streamlining this and making the service run faster and more efficient, are based on an onboard survey, a virtually 100% ridership survey that they did last fall in October of 2012, when ridership was high. It's a high ridership month for us. They hired temps and rode all of the buses and gave out a one-page survey asking people, we understand that you're riding the Route 52, but where do you live actually? Where are you trying to go? What buses are you transferring? What bus stop did you get on? Where are you trying to go? What buses are you taking? How much did you pay? And then some demographic data and all that to get a true origin and destination picture of the county. That is very, very important to remember. A lot of the recommendations of changes are, and we're talking about moving to a grid-like system. The current system is more of a hub system where we send people to the malls, to transfer centers that are at shopping plazas and malls throughout the county, and have people transfer to get to their destination. But in the majority, in all of the malls, that's not people's final destination. Some people want to go shopping, but not everybody, and they're there to transfer. And so what we wanted to find out was really, where are you trying to get to? Do you need this transfer? We've also been out and engaging the public, the non-riding public, because the people that ride the bus today they use it today, they can use it. We want to find out how to engage non-riders. That's what the public outreach has been all about. And then last, there is an element, again, when I talk to you all at the board, it's very important for you to feel like you're in charge of it all and the most important people, and you are. But
yes.
you're only one component, right?
Our riders are the most.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, let's put that in perspective.
But there's some policy issues, I think, to kind of drive ridership pattern as well. So we're more than halfway done. We're certainly more than halfway done with the expense of this study, because the vast majority of expenses was in that onboard survey.
Can I ask a question? You were talking about the possibility of bringing more people into the commuting aspect. How does that work in with the, is that a separate study, or is that going to be worked in? I mean, we're talking, a lot of the people we've been talking to are already riding it, but the commuters, it seems to be a new thing.
Yeah.
And are we figuring out what the best commuter routes would be somewhere?
Yes, and that's an element, or there's some strategies to try to attract commuters in the plan. And I'm not actually saying something that you already didn't tell me, because that was one of the goals that you adopted for the plan to attract those markets. So where we are today is April. This is just one component. But ultimately, there will be the full bus study, and it will be presented in a complete package. Or as your chair said, a book, a bus study, tangible book. That'll be a very, very important book for PSTA and the PSTA board, because the idea is that we would take this, and this would be the basis for our future transit development plans, TDPs, out into the future. So this would be a book that we would follow. It wouldn't just sit on the shelf. What you have today is just the first chapter of that book, and it is just what we're calling the optimal plan. That based on all of those inputs, based on the cookbook of inputs, essentially with virtually no funding constraints, what is the optimal plan for the bus network of Pinellas County? If there was essentially no funding constraints, how could we meet all of the goals? How could we best serve the riders based on their current riding, non-rider feedback, etc.? That's the start. And then over the next 2 months, the planning committee and then the PSTA board will be receiving the fiscally constrained plan with a new revenue source and without. This is what I just told you. But today, Sandra's going to walk through some of this. Is the optimal bus plan. Which is one of the scenarios. And what it does is it it really emphasizes this idea that PSTA has sort of a layered network of routes. We don't go incrementally route by route, although there is detail that you're not seeing today that staff has seen, route by route detail. But from the board level, that'll be in the book. But what is important is this concept of a system, that it all works together. A system of transportation for the whole county. And you'll see in what Cassandra presents that there's layers to this. You heard the consultants back when they talked about the goals even kind of get into this, that there's this core route network, this sort of skeleton. The skeleton, the biggest component of the skeleton is the spine. And the spine is in the future would be the rail spine. But then there is this core network of high frequency routes, and then there's other routes, localized routes, commuter routes, trolley routes, etc., that sort of feed off of that, or work in between the core skeleton of routes. That's sort of the concept, and I think that's probably the most important element for the board to focus on, is how we transition the current system of hub transfer to this sort of layered network system. I think this, again, this is all under the umbrella, the outreach umbrella of the Green Light Pinellas outreach program. The schedule for this bus study approval is this summer. At the same time, the outreach is going on, and we're going to be feeding this information to the business and civic and ACPT. But it's all being put together and will be completed following the outreach, the Green Light outreach effort, so that then by the time we get to the council, where we're kind of coalescing the public input through that which happens in the fall, this will be a plan, just like the alternative analysis is a plan. But it's important, since we've already started the Green Light outreach effort and we're wearing the pins, that's why I wanted to get. I think it's important for you and the PSTA board to get this bus information. Not all at the end, not all when the whole plan is done, but now at your planning committee, sort of incrementally over the next several months, so that we can start going out to the public and getting their input on this. We already have been out in the public talking about this now for about 2 months. 40-some events. Cassandra just went this morning to an event, and I hung out with you guys here at the finance committee. Some 2,000 people and growing we have touched or talked about this bus plan with. We have been playing this game with most of the outreach efforts, and then in addition to the sort of groups that we make presentations to, we have set up tables at all of our transit terminals, at St. Pete College, at USF St. Pete, and other places where large groups gather, and just talk to people one-on-one, and had them play this little game where they're given $10, and then they get to allocate their $10 in any way they want to these items. Would you rather see improved frequency, transfers, span, coverage, speed, amenities, or better regional connection? And so you can see the total dollars. The vast majority of folks are, and this is riders and non-riders, are focused on frequency and increased number of hours, the span, how long the buses run. What we constantly hear is that folks can get to work on the bus, but then the bus stops before they can get home if they work late at night. I'm going to pass it over to Cassandra now to get a little bit more into the details.
These are the guided principles that we were working with from the. Can you just wait? Sure.
The high frequencies and.
Ready? You ready, Bill?
Yes,
Okay. And go ahead, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt your question.
I suppose to have, I'm thinking specifically out on the beach, where there might be 4 weeks, 4 months, or 3 or 4 months, where they're busy, when they've got the season out there. Is it possible just to have increased frequency for those 4 months?
Yeah, that's an operational issue that we can take care of. We do that from time to time, called plug. Yeah, we do that.
Called
But-
the what?
Plug. But let me go through this, and I think you might see how we could alleviate that on an everyday basis. So we took a systematic approach to guiding us through the technical side of things. And so when you start to see these layers of service, when you think about what we've already talked about in terms of the goal setting for this project, but also what we've heard from the public. We're focusing on that high frequency routes. We know that that's the number one thing for us as transit service providers to attract people, is not a long wait time. We're focusing on a spine and then that supporting network. Again, that spine includes rail and BRT and rapid services, which I'll explain a little bit more later. In this process, we're also streamlining those local routes for direct travel. And I'm going to show you an example. Over time, from the last time the COA was done until now, our staff has done a lot of work to accommodate folks as they want new service. But what that means is that we have gone from straight line direct service to a lot of deviations. Well, those have been really nice in the moment, but what they've created is a system of deviations, and what that really reduces our speed and it reduces our attractiveness. So we're taking a look at how do we streamline those things. The other thing is prioritizing frequency over route redundancy. And by this, I mean, there are some areas where we have closely spaced routes in terms of geographic coverage, but they aren't doing a good job in terms of frequency. And so what we've done is taken a look at the numbers and said, can we do this same job with fewer routes and increase the frequency? So in some cases, and you'll see in South St. Pete, where we've taken 3 routes and reduced it to 2, but now we're doing 10 runs an hour instead of 6. And so what it allows people to do is they might have to walk a little bit further, but when they get there, they'll have their wait times will be greatly reduced. Again, and it's the wait time that people are experiencing when they say, I want to get on this bus and I want it to be a spontaneous use situation. I want to be able to go out and know that I don't need a schedule, a bus is going to come. The other thing is specialized circulation services. So we have taken another look at, there are areas where we cannot make the deviation work, or there are too many places where people want service in a particular area. A good example of this is in the downtowns and in the gateway area, where you have a lot of people going to a lot of different places. You want to drop them in a centralized place, and then they take a circulator to get where they're going. So we've added some of those as well. So here we are today. We've seen this before earlier in Brad's conversation. There aren't that many high-frequency routes, the 4 and the Central Avenue Trail. We're the only ones that run at 15 minutes or better. We are going from a hub-based system that is lots of transfers to a grid-type system. This frequency allows us to do that and allows us to streamline our transfers. We're still talking about that major proposed facility at Roosevelt and I-275. This fits with the rail project, with a gateway rail station, but could also be a regional route hub where things come in and then we can go.
Right over here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please do not restart the computer. And then we may take some of our other hubs and change how we use them within the context of the system. Thank you. So here's an example of streamline. You can see how we're making these little deviations all over this place, and the people who are going from Clearwater to St. Petersburg are having to be on the route as we make these deviations, lengthening their trip time. So if you straighten out the route and say, what, based on the numbers, what is the right service for this corridor, we change that route, and then we layer on all of these other services, so that people can still make the trip to their final destination. So he's talking about the optimal scenario. And so we've taken these efficiencies in the system and then layered on the frequency. We'll look at each of these individually, and then we'll look back at this entire system so we know what the colors look like, because you don't have it in there in color.
copy of this.
Right. So first, in all of this bus network, and we've talked about this before, this is a foundation for what the whole network is, but it all supports that future rail service. So let's start with the core network. So these would run at 10-minute headways. They would be your BRT lines, which means they would have some in exclusive lanes. Others would be what's called rapid buses or limited stop. So they would move fast. This is about enhanced customer service, customer experience, as well as the branded vehicles and stations. And so these are the routes that would be considered part of that core network. Again, these are your major arterials, they are high frequency routes, they are high ridership routes. The next level is that frequent local network. So 15 minutes or better. This is fast frequent service, but still they're stopping more often, so they're not quite as fast, but they're getting that down into the neighborhood. When you think of all of these layers, you can think of just like the roadway system where we need interstates and arterials and collectors and neighborhood streets, all of these things work together, and you may use one or more in order to get to your final destination. So again, these are areas of strong ridership and productivity. They get people to that core network. We might have to change this color for the final presentation. You see them in yellow, Park, 66, a lot in South St. Petersburg. Again, these are 15-minute routes.
Can you just go back so I can look at it?
Sure.
This is the frequent local network part.
Yes.
So it's essentially 76 going of Lauderdale to the mall. There's no
Yeah, I have.
time.
I was making some notes, but I just printed this one out with you.
Okay.
Okay. So the blue is the supporting local network. So these are, we've gone from 10 minutes, 15 minutes, these are now your 30 minutes. Again, they are supporting all of those other pieces to time your trip here, then when you get to the core network, you're 10 or 15.
Is that US 19 is a 30-minute?
No,
I
US
can't tell
19
what
was
I'm
a-
looking at, so-
US 19 was a 10-minute.
Diagonal, it goes all the way up.
Okay, that's US
It was
19?
US 19.
Wasn't sure if that was US 19 or McCollum Booth. Okay, thank you.
So we're here at 30 minutes. And now we're looking at the trolley service, so there's other connectors. We have looked at the trolley service as it's slightly different because you're serving a slightly different market. And so provided several different ways to use the trolley system. Central Avenue trolley would continue to run the way it does today, but at a higher frequency, so a 10-minute frequency. Suncoast Beach trolley, you would have one from Clearwater all the way down to Paso Grill that would run at 20 minutes. And then you would have these additional ones that serve in between the Tyrone, down past Johns Pass to 75th and Gulf, and then also in the Clearwater Beach area. Again, these would be layered on top, so they would each provide 20-minute service, but layered on top of that Suncoast Beach trolley long route, in those sections, you're getting 10-minute service.
And then what about the North Dunk?
And then Jolly Trolley, that would continue as it does today.
1 hour shows.
That would continue, yes.
No, so I think they changed everything to nothing.
Nothing, now they're thinking it's, 30-minute service for
And
the
just,
Jolly Trolley.
again,
Yeah.
I don't mean to keep interrupting, but we're, so there would be no expansion of the Lake County trolley stuff, like out to Neiman Island or anything?
Well, they want to run every half hour.
We run every half hour.
Will it go out to Honeyman Island? Because there's no public transportation to Honeyman Island at all right now.
Again, we have not gotten into that level of detail yet. But it's something that you, I hear it.
Whatever it is, I don't know if that's the right thing. I just know that, just like the one on the other end, Fort DeSoto, we need to have public transportation in these places.
The sort of most new idea proposed about the trolleys so far by the consultant is this idea that on the beach generally, the current Suncoast Beach trolley runs up and down the whole beach at lower frequency, and the ridership is highest. There's very high ridership up in the Clearwater Beach area, and then down Johns Pass, down to St. Pete Beach, and down. And so, it's an innovative idea that they still have the Suncoast Beach trolley running the whole thing, but then you would layer on top other trolleys, more frequent service up in the north and then in the south. And the TMB has not come up with a whole marketing plan, but is there a way that our award-winning marketing staff can still call it all the trolley? It all seems like the trolley, but they need to know, folks need to know where is this Suncoast Beach trolley going. But the idea is put the frequency where the riders are. Yeah.
So you plug in additional service in the high demand.
Well, not quite, but it'd be a regular route.
Okay.
Yeah, but these are very light green. You can see them all the way from Tarpon Springs, Clearwater down to Paso Grill, and then across St. Petersburg, Tyrone, as well as Central Avenue. The other thing that you can't see on a map is the hours of service that we're providing in this optimal scenario. What we've heard from people is we're not accommodating the trip home, the final trip home, whether that's people going to school, whether that's second or third shift workers. We aren't completing the trip. And that's because we don't start early enough and we don't run late enough. So in this optimal scenario, we would run from 5 a.m. to midnight, 6 days a week, and 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Sundays. And then that supporting network would run slightly different. But again, the core network and the frequent network, that 10 and 15-minute service would run very late. The other thing that we wanted to include is regional connections, getting over to Tampa, getting to the airport, and doing it from all areas of the county. So here you see in green, we have a new 60X. This would run along with the Route 60, run a half-hour service as opposed to the more frequent service in the regular route, but would go to Tampa International and then on to downtown Tampa. The 300X would continue, we'd start in Largo and go across the Howard Franklin Bridge, again connecting to TIA through the Intermodal Center and in downtown. And the 100X would be moved from Gandy to the Howard Franklin Bridge, running in the management lanes. Yes.
What about a Hillsborough connection?
What do you mean?
Meaning Hillsborough Avenue?
There is the connector service, which is included in this, still included, that goes over to the Hart Transfer Center, the Northwest Transfer Center. So that service also continues. But that's not considered an express commuter service.
Right,
That is
that's what I'm asking. So would there be an express commuter service?
over the top of the band.
I mean, you're calling 60X Orange County, it's not.
I'm hearing that.
You know what I'm saying? That's mid-county to most people.
Yes. I
Well,
do.
to many people. So that's not North County. I mean, Hillsborough's connection, a lot of, I'm just asking, is there, I throw that out there again, I'm not trying to nitpick anything, I just think it should be something to look at, because
We should look at it. I agree.
that's the North County connection to Hillsborough. It's a slow drudgery
I'm
connection.
glad you brought that up. I'm spending next Monday hanging out with the Oldsmar city manager and developers of Oldsmar.
Yeah.
Pitch me on how they need to come together with that.
But it's true, I mean, so to
See,
me, I think we shouldn't call Clearwater's connection the North County connection. I think we should not call it.
Wasn't T-Bar projecting a whole lot of business growth up there?
Yeah.
No.
Not T. Barda. Oldsmar. Oldsmar Chamber.
Yeah, we can talk about the ridership projections in the T-Bar plan.
So you're saying out of the bus study, the existing bus study, they went out and commented, these are the routes that came out of that.
Yeah, this is, a lot of this is a data-driven approach, given the information that we have today, and that includes a lot of information about where our current riders are going, what we've garnered from the non-riding public, and the travel demand model to some extent.
There's another change on here.
It just,
Yeah,
again,
under
and I hear exactly what you're saying, but sometimes, and I am not questioning the people that are the experts at all.
We won't call it North County.
Well, forget that part. I'm not questioning the experts. But, you know, you'd have to decide chicken or the egg. There is no service up there really, other than what we just added. So people aren't gonna tend to think that either, you know, if it's not there. You've got 3 ways to get to Tampa, and we're only covering 2. So it's a common sense thing. You know, you've got 3 ways, Gandy, well, I shouldn't say that, I mean, Howard Franklin, you've got 4 ways to get there. But, okay, out of the 4, we're covering 2. So you have to ask yourself,
Yeah.
you at least have to ask yourself, is that really what we want? I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but
I mean, these are good coverage conversations.
Yes.
Good coverage conversations.
Yes.
I already submitted 2 demands last night.
Yes.
I'll submit yours. And if.
I have, yes.
well, I don't want to consider my thing a demand.
Not a demand,
It's a
because
question.
it may be cut out anyway. But
It's a question.
And this is an optimal scenario that would then be put into, to directly be put into the long-range transportation plan, policy plan, which is their needs assessment. So in terms of coverage, we can put that in there. We will have to talk about the funding.
And well, on the connector itself, isn't that one of the highest routes?
it's the highest connector,
Yeah.
but it's not.
No, I know it's not the highest
going
route, but I
every
mean, it's the
hour.
highest connector.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's
okay.
doing very well.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
See you. Keep peppering Senator's comments.
So we also put into place some areas where we want to do some community circulation. So this allows us to, again, streamline the long trip, but allow people to get to their final destination. So in these areas, let's say the connector of the North County, as well as we would work out routes with the individual areas in Gateway, Nellis Park, Shore Acres, Seminole, and downtown St. Petersburg. And these would be to get people to that core network. And this is the system that would result. And this is shown in terms of frequency. The dark blue is 10 minutes, the lighter is 15, and the lightest is 30 minutes. So there's no 60-minute service anymore. We've reallocated those somewhere. On the weekend, we still would have very good service on the trolley routes, on the beaches, at 10 minutes. And again, these are 10 minutes because they have multiple routes overlaid. And then 15-minute and very few 60-minute services. Also gives you some of those regional connections, continues to have them. So today we don't have service on the weekends for those.
What is this? Oh, the 60-minute is the connectors.
It's the connectors, yeah.
There's about only 60-minute back.
Yes. So again, this all then feeds the core, which includes that rail spot. So when we have the rail up and running, you would also have circulators that are doing neighborhood circulation as well as station area circulation. So we have additional circulators in the airport area, in Largo, and in Clearwater.
I don't see trolley service going in North County.
It's overlaid with a frequent service. You see the blue line going up the
Yeah.
coast? There's trolley service underneath that on the weekends. On top of that, there's 15-minute service.
That's what I need to understand is that the trolley service is going to, from what I've been seeing, is going from 1 hour service to 30 minutes.
The trolley service to the North County is, yes, we're gonna do twice as much service.
Right. And then there is bus service.
15-minute bus service, 15-minute frequency bus service.
Is the trolley service, right now it's only Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yes,
Is
it would just continue, the bus service would be every
Every
day.
day, and the trolley
Service would be weekends, Friday, Saturday,
Got
Sunday.
it.
Yes.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you. You may want, if you're going to distinguish the trolley service, you may want to figure out a way that shows both for just the average person, if community members are going to see something like this.
Right, so the trolley doesn't go, we're not saying the trolley goes away, the trolley is overlaid.
Right, so you might want to figure out a way to
It's
show
like
both
Central
colors.
Avenue, there are routes that's a trolley route, it's also a BRT route, it's also so there's certain roads that have multiple services running on them.
You just may want to, I don't know how you do it, but you might want to find a way to show both colors so that it's easy to understand. Because when you look at this map, it looks like there's trolley service in mid to South County and nothing in North County.
And what we haven't done is said, well, what kind of vehicle is this? You have the cutaway vans that we use for the North County Connector, but we haven't talked about, well, is the service that goes up at 15 minutes and it's in the frequent network, what kind of vehicle is that? Is that a 40-foot bus? Is that a trolley? We could run 15-minute trolley service in a trolley, in a bus that is a trolley, as opposed to the connector vans or whatever. So what we're showing is the frequency of service, not the vehicle, necessarily the vehicle that's used. So again, this is going from what we have today, the hub service, and when we have long wait times, that's critical to have a nice place for people to wait. Going to a grid with high frequency, which allows us to be more direct, give people more choices, but then ultimately results in a performance measure of a higher fare box return. So we also have a phased approach. We have some things that we would start right away. Those efficiencies, reducing the deviations could happen quickly. And then new services, we could reallocate services in 2015. Sorry, yes, in 2015. That's what we would start to move towards. Now, that would not be all of the frequency levels that we're showing here in the optimal plan, but it would just sort of move incrementally towards that optimal plan.
So the February 2014 would be using our existing straighter routes.
We would start to make some of those route changes to be more efficient, yes.
But not increasing the
Frequency.
We don't have the vehicles to increase
Right.
reduce the headwinds.
So the next step is to get down to the next level about refining where things are going in the routes. We've already talked internally, staff, about, well, because we're changing the route, we're now going to not go by this apartment building. Well, that's gonna happen, where if we try to streamline for the long trip, there may be somebody who has to walk a little bit further, and that's gonna be an issue that comes up.
So, on your previous slide, the route efficiency elements, does that mean streamlining, doesn't mean providing more routes or?
No, there would be just the streamlining of routes, so we're not making, there are some routes, as I showed you, 52, that kind of go in and
Yeah.
out to this area, and then in and out to this area,
Yeah.
and then in and out to that area.
So
And we
we
would
could-
streamline those
Okay.
so that we'd be a faster trip. That could also mean stop reductions. So we're going from stopping every 700 feet to every 1,500 feet. All of those things, little things, can make a big difference in the service itself. So again, we had to go down to that route level recommendations, and we'll take your comments today and make some changes. We'll get to the available revenue, the no new revenue, and the alternative analysis assumptions. I'll tell you right now that this optimal scenario is more than what was put into the alternatives analysis. And so we're getting what that number is, how much more. And we think it's about 25% more than what's in the alternative analysis right now. If we start adding other services, that could be even more than what the alternatives analysis had put into the financial plan. So when we talked about the baseline scenario and the baseline assumptions for a financial plan, as we start to go back through those assumptions and how much revenue we're gonna have and what routes we're gonna support with that, we'll have to have this phased implementation as well as that community dialogue about what those snapshots, as Julie, you were talking about earlier, about having a snapshot of whatever is 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, so that people can see how it changes over time.
Okay, questions, guys?
I was looking at the route map, and it seems like, for the, in the upper county, that would be a good one. It seems like it just screams for a connection from 19, and I don't know if that would be Curlew Road over to Hillsborough.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
And I just.
Okay.
That's what I said earlier. That's what I'm saying, Hillsborough Avenue connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get,
Curlew Tampa Road is Hillsborough Avenue.
yeah, so you getting, I mean, and I don't know if that's ever been considered before.
Or really across the road.
No, and
Yeah.
it's definitely,
And,
you can put that in.
to adding to that
Mhm.
in general, not this particular, you're saying this is what supports the rail system, so this is sort of everything, is what you're saying.
This is everything. If you want to see it, just the bus.
Yeah, just the bus.
Thought I had it in here with just.
I did too. Well, any way you look at it, my point is, any way you look at it, and it's something that has sort of stuck with me all along. Okay, all along since I got onto PSTA. And I understand too, if there's, before I say what I'm gonna say, I understand that when you have proven ridership, that's where you need to put your money, you have to start somewhere. It was the same with the rail route. There was lots of debate about
about the fact that that rail was only in Mid and South County. But no matter how you look at these maps, what I think you're gonna hear from the public is, okay, there's not a lot of service in North County, even with this expanded penny. There just isn't. And from a data perspective, you can't prove what doesn't exist today. You can't, it's all projections as to what your ridership might be and what they might want. You know what I mean? Because you've got really nothing to prove it other than a brand new service that's not even a year old, and a trolley, and some bus service that's been 60 to 60+ minute service. You know, the service has been poor, so people don't use it. So I understand the data side of it, and I don't dispute that at all. I just think the general feeling from the public when they see a map like this is going to be North County isn't getting, they don't care about the data. They don't. I mean, they're not gonna spend that much time thinking about it. They're going to have an initial reaction, all the services in Mid to South County, why should we up here, you know, the what's in it for me, as was presented earlier. I think you're gonna get a lot of, from North County people anyway, you're gonna get a lot of feedback on it. And it's bothered me from the beginning, even with the AA, with the rail, it's bothered me from the beginning. I know you have to start somewhere, but even